Hey there, this is Michael Spencer, and I'm going to give you a quick presentation today about how to think like an internet marketer. So, if you have been around the marketing world for very long, you probably know the story of John Wanamaker, who is considered today the father of modern advertising. Back in the day, he was just one of the big guys. He knew what he was doing, and he's most famous today for saying that half of his advertising was wasted. The problem is he just didn't know which half. Now that is so true for anybody that spent any money advertising. It's sometimes difficult to track all of your success and to see what's working for you. Now fortunately, in our day and age, there is a lot more tracking that's available when it comes to internet marketing. So much information, as a matter of fact, that people specialize and spend their entire careers just being able to look at this, they call it big data, at this enormous amount of information, what it means, and how to make sense of the whole thing. So digital marketing doesn't necessarily work the same way it did when John Wanamaker made that statement. I'm sure he'd be very excited to break into this new world that we're living in. And a lot of this is due to things like JavaScript, Java, and cookies that allow you to track people online, see where they've been, how long they've been on your site. You can give them information and serve them ads like this, which is a ring that I saw probably about 3 weeks before I got married. I saw this ring on Overstock, and I was convinced that just because I was kind of more of an active person, I was going to lose my ring. So I said, hey, why not just get a cheap one and buy a bunch of them? And so I bought this one. I think I lost it 3 months after I got married. But what happened is I went to Overstock, I saw this ring, I liked it, and what happened was when I started going around the internet, I started seeing this ring everywhere I went. And I'm sure that a lot of you probably had this same experience where you go to a website and all of a sudden you start seeing ads for that website all over the place. And sometimes it can be creepy and wonder, how in the world did they know that I was on this website? Or how did this website know that I was just on Overstock? It can seem a little creepy sometimes, but it's because of things like cookies. Overstock placed a cookie in my browser telling my browser what page I was looking at. I visited a website that served Google Ads. Google Ads read my cookies and found that I was on Overstock, which happened to be serving an ad for this particular cookie, and showed me the ad. The cool thing about all this tracking is it's not necessarily just limited to tracking website visitors. Let's say you're paying for advertising, you can also track your vendors. You can target the URLs that you put on their website to link to you in a banner ad. You can include something called a URL parameter using the Google URL builder, and you can tell it exactly what website someone comes from when they clicked on the link. You can see here I am targeting a website called KSL. I'm running some banner ads, and you can see how many visitors I got, and you can see how many phone calls I got as a result of that, which is awesome. A lot of times, this isn't true with KSL, but a lot of times I'll get reports from vendors that'll say, we got you XYZ results. And then I go check out my own tracking, and it wasn't anywhere near as positive as they reported it. The reason why is because, think about it. If you were a vendor, would you give your client reason to fire you? Of course not. So either they'll spin the information in a good positive light, or they'll just change it, which has happened a lot of times. And usually, because most people aren't tracking their results, there's no way for you to refute it. Because like John Wanamaker said, half of advertising can't be tracked, or is wasted, and the reason why is because you can't track it. And if you don't track it, you're basically in the exact same situation that John Wanamaker was in. And so if you're proactive about tracking, you can make some big decisions. And so if you look at a typical distribution of where your leads come from, what you'll typically find is that you have a few lead sources on the left that are providing you with the most leads. And then you have a whole bunch of them that are giving you practically nothing. Now, this might not be a bad thing because a lot of these little lead sources, maybe they're free websites. Maybe they're, referring websites that you didn't pay to be on, and so you can't really complain because it's free. But usually when you go towards the left and increasing the number of leads, those are typically going to be things that you're paying for. Now, let's just say, for example, you had $1 million budget. Where would you spend that money? If you're like me, and you're like most people, you're probably going to put the most money where you're getting the most leads, and you're going to put the least amount of money where you're getting the least leads. Now, if you've heard of the 80-20 rule, this is true to form 80-20. Most of your leads come from the fewest vendors, and most of your vendors provide the fewest leads. And so if you're tracking correctly, you don't want to be spending the most money on someone that's providing you with the least, but if you don't track, that's what you're going to probably do. And so if you look at the important numbers to base your decisions on, let's just start by talking about conversions. What is a conversion? A conversion can be anything from a phone call to a sale to a phone number provided. They give you their phone number. They can give you their zip code. They can fill out a form. They can chat with one of your web operators. They can download an app, fill out a survey, watch a video. They can play a song. The bottom line is that anything can be a conversion, but it's typically related to how you make money. And so if you look at what goes into a conversion, we've got impressions, click-through rate, and conversion rate. As a webmaster, you're going to want to be concerned with all three of these, and we'll explain why. So an impression is, if we take a look here, KSL.com, it's a very big news website here in Utah. KSL.com is serving 3 ads right now. There are 3 impressions that are happening at this very moment. There's probably more than that because if you scroll down the page, there's more towards the bottom. But for our intents and purposes, there's 3 impressions. I look at a page, KSL serves an ad, that's an impression. Usually, you'll buy impressions from websites like this in the thousands, and so you'll pay them a certain dollar amount to serve your ads 1,000 times. And what happens is someone looks at the ad, or they may or may not even notice it depending on how good your ad is, and at that point, that's when they have the moment of decision. Do they click? Is there a click-through rate? Now let's talk about click-through rate, because back here we're looking at these ads. Which one catches your eye the most? Let's pretend that you're really interested in this article in Argo, and you are watching the video. Which one is going to attract your attention away from the video to click on the ad? My guess is it's either going to be this one right here or that one right here. Definitely not this one up here. But the reason why that is because RC Willie is using a big blue background on a white background website. It attracts your eyes away from it. TurboTax is doing a great job because they're using an orange button. There's lots of things that go into having a good click-through rate, but typically all of the bad ads share a lot of things in common. For example, this guy has a really dark background. It's fine as long as it's on a white website, but black usually isn't the best color to do that with. It says now available, quest for the fountain of life, a story of heroic proportions where you choose your path. That's great. What is it? I mean, is it a video game? Is it a book? Is it a website? What is it? If I click on this ad, what am I going to see? And on top of that, they're not even asking me to click on the ad. I mean, I could be sitting on KSL and see that ad and say, oh yes, excellent, the fountain of life is finally available. I can't wait. And then I go about my merry way. I didn't even know I was supposed to click on the picture because they didn't tell me to click. This is a really good example of an ad. It uses really bold colors. The text is on the mark. Close out snowboard store. So right there, that's their name. closeout snowboard store, I know that if I click on this, I'm going to be taken to an e-commerce website where they're going to try and sell me something because it's a store. They give me a reason for clicking, huge discounts, and they tell me what to do. They say, click here, and they show me a picture of the product. So this is a really good example of an ad. Now, the interesting thing about click-through rate is this isn't necessarily the vendor's fault. A lot of times vendors will agree to create an ad for you, either for pay or as a bonus for signing up with them and agreeing to spend a certain amount per month. And so if they make your ad for you, make sure they're making ads like this on the right here, the good example, not the bad example. It doesn't have to necessarily look obnoxious like the one on the right, but you definitely want it to attract eyeballs and give people a reason to click. The conversion rate is one of the most important parts of the process because let's say, for example, you buy 1 million impressions. It's going to cost you a healthy amount of money, and you design a good ad, they click on your ad, they get to your website, but if you have an ugly website, they probably aren't going to convert. Ugly is a really personal term because what's beautiful to one person is ugly to another, but you can typically see that bad websites have a lot in common. Usually they're very distracting. Like this website gives people a lot of options, so many options as a matter of fact that you don't really even know what to do. I mean, unless you knew exactly what you wanted and could spot it here, you're probably going to become overwhelmed and click the back button by the time you find it. The dark color in the background kind of sucks a lot of light out of the website, and so it's difficult to really visually navigate around the site just because there's, first of all, so much going on, so much text to read, so many pictures. You can't see it in this because it's a screenshot, but over here this guy is flying out. It's an animated GIF, and he's popping out and popping in and popping out and popping in. And there's so many things going on here that it's kind of distracting, and it's just kind of difficult to really move beyond this page. And my guess is this probably converts at about 1% or a little less. Now 1% is not bad. Don't get me wrong. 1% is a good number. However, this is a website that I designed that's doing some different things. I'm trying not to overwhelm the visitor. I'm trying to use a lot of white space so that it kind of feels a little minimalist. I'm using a little bit grayer text. It's not that harsh. I'm using blue and some kind of softer colors. The gray background makes it so that the background is not distracting. I don't want them to look at the background and say, oh, what a cool background. I want them to sign up and become a client. In the conversion rate optimization world, keep this in mind. Show the monkey the banana. I want them to call, chat, or fill out the form. So what are the most prominent features on the page? The phone, the chat box, and the form to fill out. The video on the left is giving people reasons to fill out the form on the right, or call or chat. Anything on this page that doesn't make people want to fill out the form, chat, or call is a distraction and should be eliminated. Now, this is a lead generation website, so it's not completely fair to compare the results that I've got with the Barbell website, simply because lead generation websites usually convert at a higher rate. Typically, a really, really, really good lead generation website will convert at 6%. This one's doing much more than that because we're doing some things right. And so, if you want to take a look at some example numbers to show how important this is, let's say I went to KSL and I bought 10,000 impressions. I designed an ad that got a 1% click-through rate, which in the ad world is actually really good, but I'm just using this as an example. And I got my website converted at 1%. So I bought 10,000 impressions, I got one customer. Now, let's say, for example, I'm selling ukuleles. Now, that one customer is going to equal about $40 in revenue for me. Now, if we go back to costs, I'm going to probably have to pay somewhere around $8 for that to buy 1,000. $8 CPM. CPM stands for cost per thousand. And so to buy those 10,000 impressions, it's going to cost me $80. The problem is that I spent 80, I made 40, and so I'm not going to be advertising with KSL for very long, right? Now the thing is that's not necessarily KSL's fault, right? They sold me eyeballs, they sold me impressions. Now if I was to take that same $80 and buy the same 10,000 impressions, but this time I designed a better ad and got a 2% click-through rate, which is pretty much impossible in real life, but these are just clean numbers to keep things easy. But basically I designed a better ad, doubled my click-through rate, which is not impossible. That's very easy to do. And I designed a better website, and so taking it from 1% to 5% in an e-commerce world is fairly difficult, but we'll just use it to keep things simple. So I increased the conversion rate of my website. Now I got 10 sales, which equals $400. Now I spent 80, made 400, and I'm the coolest guy on the planet. I'm really, really excited. Now, if you're a vendor watching this, a majority of the people that you sell to are going to hold you responsible for things that you can't always control. You're going to deliver them impressions. They design a bad ad and have a terrible landing page. The campaign is not going to work, and it's going to be your fault because they probably aren't tracking it, and they won't know that it's their fault. They won't know it's because they got a bad click-through rate. They won't know it's because they had a bad website. All they will know is that they paid you 40, they paid you 80, they made 40, thus you're bad. So you want to think about that. So just to wrap up with some practical tips, as an internet marketer, I typically won't buy from someone that knows less than I do about the product they're selling. That may not sound significant, but a lot of times with internet marketing there is so much garbage out there, and it's just really hard to sift through all the garbage. And so usually it's easier just to not have a conversation than it is to have a conversation. If I answer the phone, someone says, "How's your SEO doing?" Or "Would you like to achieve top rankings in Google?" And then I say, "Sure," and they say, "What's your URL?" And I'm thinking, holy cow, you don't even know if I already have top rankings in Google. You didn't even check out my website, right? And so, as a salesperson, having your own website to show off makes a huge difference, and be able to show off your analytics because people know that you're not just trying to sell them something. You are guiding them through a process through which you've already been through and that you can successfully navigate. If you were to show them your analytics account and say, look at the orange line, and I was going along and everything was fine, I was happy, then I did XYZ, which I'm selling you right now, and now all of a sudden my visits are up by an enormous margin and I've got 1,000% more phone calls and everything's going great. It's probably a lot easier for someone to have confidence in you as a salesperson because you've done it before. You're not just selling them something. You've done it. You're the expert. So I hope that this has been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to tweet me on Twitter. My username is @climber83, which you'll see in the lower right-hand corner throughout this presentation. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much.